read this on noun clause now. It says a noun clause is a clause that is equivalent to a noun. So we know that a noun could be a name, right, of a person, place, right, or thing. Some very rudimentary definition of a noun, right? A noun could be a name of a person, place, thing, whatever it might be, right? Then we had little something more about that. We have a noun phrase, correct? So apart from the noun, apart from the noun, we also have something more to it, right? So you can say that uh, if I have a noun and that noun is apples, then I can have the noun phrase as uh, the the red shiny apples, right? In this case, this becomes basically a noun phrase because the apples is the key noun and the other things are basically acting as modifying elements to the noun apples, right? And then after noun you have noun phrase and then you have basically the noun clause. So what could be the difference between the phrase and the clause? That you might have a verb here, correct? But it has to be a dependent clause, correct? So a dependent clause is a noun clause. So I can say these are red shiny apples because it becomes basically a dependent clause. So let's see how we can frame a noun clause which has a verb, because a clause has to have a verb. So we will see how a noun clause looks like. A noun clause is a clause that is equivalent to a noun. So we had a noun and then we had a noun phrase equivalent to a noun, and then we can have a noun clause, right? A noun clause is a clause that is equivalent to a noun. In other words, if the noun or a pronoun in a sentence is replaced by a noun clause, it would still make complete sense. Look at this now. It's a very good example. Mary is correct. So what is the noun here? Mary, right? I can replace Mary with say with, so this is what we have. Whatever Mary says is correct. So is the verb, is the verb here. Mary has been replaced with whatever Mary says. And why this is a clause? Because Mary is the subject and says is the verb. And it becomes dependent because of the word whatever. The word whatever comes and it makes it so whatever Mary says. And if I leave this sentence as it is, you will say, fine, this sentence has Mary as a subject, it has says as the verb, but it does not make complete sense. But if I say whatever Mary says is correct, now it makes complete sense. Why? Because now this clause is a noun clause. It acts like a subject of a sentence. So the noun clause can be a subject of a sentence and that has a verb with it. And therefore now it becomes a complete meaningful idea. So, or you can say whatever they say, right? Whatever Mary says, whatever they say is correct. So a word could be a subject of a sentence. A phrase could be a subject of a sentence. A clause could be a subject of a sentence. And what kind of clause? Dependent clause, not independent clause. So a word could be a subject of a sentence. The apples are ripe. A phrase could be a subject. The red shiny apples are ripe. Right? Or a clause could be a subject of a sentence. Whatever is lying on the table is ripe. Right? A dependent clause. So to introduce a noun clause, we generally use an interrogative or relative adverb, a subordinate conjunction, or the interrogative pronoun. So look at this now. Who answers my question is not my concern. This is the verb, right? And what is the subject? What is the subject of this word? Who answers my question? What is not my concern? Who answers my question is not my concern. The noun clause introduced by the relative pronoun who. This is the noun clause, right? And it is introduced by the relative pronoun who. Some say that life is a dream. So some say what? Some say that life is a dream. So here the noun clause has been introduced by the conjunction that. Noun clause introduced by the subordinate conjunction that. Some say life is a dream. Complete meaningful idea, right? It has a verb. But it is dependent. Why? Because it has a conjunction that, and therefore it is dependent. When When will one die is a question that only Providence can answer. What is a question that only Providence can answer? When will one die? When will one die is a question that only Providence can answer. So, what is a question that only Providence can answer? And the question is, when will one die? Right? This is basically what we have. Noun clause introduced by the interrogative adverb. So don't get into technicalities. We know that a dependent clause can be a noun clause. And how do we know that this is a noun clause? It basically acts like a noun. Right? So the position taken by the noun clause is basically the position that a noun could have taken. Right? So this is what we have basically about a noun clause. So something more about that in the next slide. Let's go to the next slide. It says, thus noun clause can come as, right? They can come as subject of a sentence. That life is a dream is known to all of us. So John is known to all of us, right? I can replace John with something that life is a dream is known to all of us, right? So here it has become a subject, that life is a dream. What is known to all of us? That life is a dream. Or you can say, we all know John, correct? We all know John. So John is the noun, right? And he is the object of the verb know. We all know John. Or you can say, we all know, right? And we can replace John with a noun clause, that life is a dream, correct? Simple sentence, right? So we have seen that we can have the noun clause as a subject of a sentence, the way we saw it here. We know that noun clause can be a direct object of the verb know here, as we see here in the second example. The noun clause can be the object of preposition, right? Napoleon thought little about what? So you can say Napoleon, right? Napoleon thought little about his wife, correct? So this is a noun. Napoleon thought little about his wife. And I can replace this with a clause, what he should do in case of success. Napoleon thought little about what he should. This is basically a clause, but it is taking a place of a noun, and that's why we call it as noun clause. That's the difference, basic difference between noun clause and the other kinds of clauses. Right? So subject complement, my mistake was that I did not speak. So basically, what was my mistake? My mistake was this. So this is complementing the subject. This is basically object of the verb, object of the preposition, sorry, about what? Know what, right? So the noun clause can be a subject of a sentence, it can be direct object of the verb, it can be the object of preposition, it can be the subject complement. So we must understand the noun clause. The noun clause is basically, so a noun phrase, right, might replace, right? A noun phrase might replace a noun, and a noun clause might replace a noun phrase. And fine. So this is what we have about noun clause. Let's go and take the other types of clauses.